Today, the global economy exists in a state of high tension, defined by a standoff that many assume has always existed. Yet, before 1979, Iran and Israel maintained relatively normal diplomatic and economic relations. That relationship ended with the Iranian Revolution. As these crowds gathered in Tehran, these militias provided a way to maintain constant military pressure on Israel's borders without a formal declaration of war. This satellite view shows a heavily fortified Iranian nuclear facility. Israel's counter-strategy involved covert airstrikes, cyber operations, and targeted killings to stall this infrastructure. As diplomatic efforts failed, distrust grew. The sheer scale of these complexes reflects how entrenched the program became. This shadow war was a containment system. It functioned only as long as neither side launched a direct attack on the other's home territory, a boundary that finally broke. The breaking point arrived in 2024. Following a series of Israeli strikes on targets in Syria and Lebanon, the long-standing pattern of indirect conflict changed. Iran launched a direct missile attack on Israeli territory, the first time it had ever attacked from its own soil. Israel responded with its own retaliatory strikes against Iranian military infrastructure, striking back at the source. These reciprocal strikes moved the conflict into the open, marking the end of the unwritten rules that had kept the violence indirect for decades. By June 2025, the confrontation escalated into a short but intense full-scale war. This map shows the scale of the exchange. Israel targeted Iranian nuclear facilities, while Iran launched missile swarms toward Israeli cities. After 12 days, a ceasefire was reached. As direct fire stopped, proxy activity in Lebanon and Gaza immediately intensified. During the final months of 2025, both nations increased their military readiness. Diplomatic attempts to revive nuclear agreements failed, and the standoff returned to a state of high alert. The June fighting ended with the core nuclear dispute untouched, ensuring that any future escalation would start from a much higher baseline of violence. On February 28, 2026, the conflict reached its widest point, when the United States joined Israel in conducting large-scale strikes on Iran. This joint operation was designed to neutralize key elements of Iran's defense and nuclear infrastructure in a single window of time. Iran responded by widening its targets, striking U.S. military positions across the region alongside its continued barrages into Israeli territory. With the United States now a direct participant, the conflict shifted from a bilateral war into a global security crisis. The fighting disrupted the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical maritime choke point for oil. This chart tracks the immediate impact. As the strait became a combat zone, global fuel prices spiked, creating widespread economic instability. For energy-dependent nations like India, this disruption triggered a collapse in industrial output, shockwaves hitting global supply chains within days. After weeks of intense combat and significant losses for all parties, a ceasefire was finally announced on April 8, 2026. This agreement ended the large-scale military operations, though it left the core issues of nuclear progress and proxy influence untouched. We are now in a tense Cold War standoff. The world is watching a fragile pause, aware that if it breaks, the entire global economy is in the blast radius.